Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Astrology Victoria. Today, with your host Tatiana, also about broadcasting for ANN Archetypal News Network. And today, we're going to be talking about the astrology of the week, October the 31st, today, Monday, all the way through Sunday the 6th. And we will be talking about what's going on in the sky, of course, between these eclipses and leading up to the next lunar eclipse. There's a lot of tension building in the sky and also gifts, many gifts from the scorpionic energies that we will be talking about today. And today is Halloween, whatever that means for you, this celebration or Samhain. Um, and it's very within the theme of what we're going to talk about of Scorpio season. So let's share our presentation, and here it is. Dun dun dun. Present. Okay. So here we are with a few of the things going on this week that we can talk about. Um, and Last week Mars started its retrograde, so that's like one of like the highlights of what's going on that I wanted to mention, even if it was yesterday. And we will be with these retrogrades. uh Anytime there is a retrograde, we know that there is a involution of the energy or a rethinking. And with Mars, it's also about retracing our steps, our actions, because Mars is about the actions we take and the will. It's also about how we use our energy to do things. It's the willpower, the action driven planet. It's also about our passions and the drive. That is all of Mars's themes. And also, that could be anger, anything that drives something forward. It's linked to Mars. And when it's retrograde, we might be asked to retrace our steps, what we have done, our actions, everything that we have taken like action in the past few months will be up for review again. Like, have we gone through the right path? Is it like, are the actions we're taking the right actions, or is it like misleading? This is a time where there could be enormous amounts of confusion. We talked about this with the Mars Neptune aspects, where and also Jupiter coming in the mix, where there could be almost uh, a sense of delusion at certain points. So it's important to make sure that what the paths we're going on are not just led by everything else outside ourselves, but from directed by our inner sense or inner compass of what truth is, not truths or beliefs that are outside of ourselves, because that's when we get misled and can get very confused in what path of action to take. And things might seem like yeah, like, I wouldn't say like too good to be true at times, but really delusional. Like, this is where there's so much information, especially Mars in Gemini. We talked about this multiplicity of distractions that can happen, and many paths are possible at this time. And this is a time of fine tuning, a time of getting yourself really aligned with who you truly want to be, and liberate ourselves from patterns and patterns and patterns of old beliefs, which is what's coming also with these eclipses. So that's like on the first note. And this is something that's going to be for a while. It's not just this particular week, but this is like a context. And Mars will be retrograded all the way until January. So this is a couple of months of retracing our steps, almost like slowing down that drive energy to make sure we can we can course correct, almost, because Mars usually goes like phew, 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 and we just went so fast with many things. And now also, as Jupiter has been retrograding in Pisces, it's also a time to, it's its last retrograde in Pisces before moving on again onto Aries and forward for a long time. So these are like the times to dissolve those loose ends, or things that are completely dissolving in your reality are going to completely, as the last passage of Jupiter through Pisces, um, we might be transforming all of those old paths, old things, and letting them put to rest. So this these new cycles that were started, and when Jupiter moved into Aries, we knew there's many new things that came into our reality, and with a lot of bravado and energy and excitement and daredevil energy, a little bit big new things, like everything Jupiter. um but there's still things that are lagging from the past, and these are the things that are getting wrapped up, making sure we leave everything behind to move on forward. So that is one thing that is going on in this these months. And what it's very important this week, as Mars transits those last degrees of Gemini, uh, and again through its retrograde, um, it's that we have these possibilities for confusion again and again and again. Like, make sure you're not being misled. So for that, I would always recommend tuning to yourself, not so much into everybody's perspectives and things. And also do your own research about things. If you're not sure of something, don't just believe the first thing somebody says. Take the time, and this is good with Mars in Gemini as well. There's time to, or the capacity to be doing multiple things, and sourcing different perspectives. It's also a supportive energy for that. So make sure from all the perspectives you get that you align with one truth that is inside of you. So that is one thing. um Now, let's move into the whole Scorpio season kind of thing, where we have, now that we talked about this, we are going to talk about all of this here, which, of course, this week it's a lagging over of the Sun conjunct Venus, where the expression and highlight of everything beauty, everything graceful is like the Sun Venus promotes friendliness and grace and beautiful things and art and expression. And it's interesting because Scorpio has this tint of the dying, and I always say that there is something beautiful in death when we can detach from the ideas that death is a final thing instead of a step for something new. And as we incorporate these notions into our collective psyche, that a death is just a rebirth, which is the whole meaning of Scorpio, is the capacity to regenerate and regenerate, like the cycles, like the seasons. Things die and then they are born again. And every cycle we go through is always has that moment where things need to go. Bigger cycles, smaller cycles. And here with these eclipses we have been seeing, from the eclipse we had last week, that solar eclipse, that we were up for reviewing all the Scorpio things or themes that we needed to be kind of looking at and letting go of, and all our beliefs around value, money, worth, all our beliefs around this axis of the Scorpio Taurus are being shaken. That's why everything in the economy is being shaken. So we can finally release these beliefs we have around what value, exchange, what's mine, what's yours. Like, how do we deal with these things? And with the Venus Sun, of course, there's everything having to do with relationships, because Venus is about relationship and the things we value. And this is a time to sort out also what are the supportive relationships and what are the ones that are needing to go. And there's something about the process of death and the grace that it can be brought up with, and I'm going to show a little image about this. So let's put myself here. This is a little bit of how I see this Venus conjunct Sun in Scorpio. And it's like, and this is probably very trivial, but it's like Halloween stuff, and and Halloween, everybody goes and puts costumes on, and it's just a self-expression of darker themes. And again, this is trivial, but it's part of that Venus things. Is there's pleasure, or there's beauty, or there's some kind of enjoyment around this time. So today we can expect a lot of Halloween costumes and things like that, or celebration around the themes of death or the dead, or the darker themes. Whether it is trivial or deep, uh it's not right or wrong, it's just what the energy pushes forward. And this is the way I perceive this Venus Sun energy, a little bit like the Day of the Dead, um, uh, beautifying or honoring. And if you take it to a really deep, deep, deep level, then how can we not just make it superficial as something that's just about partying, or, um, putting makeup on, and make it like a fun and sociable experience, which is great. But how can we also take the depth of what actually death means? And if we could take time, even during these, celebrations of, at least the West celebrates, or some kind of Western traditions of Halloween, go deeper to the meaning of what actually letting go of things mean. If you have time to meditate on what is dying in me, or what has, or outside of me, sometimes it's things that we are actually genuinely needing to detach from. It could be also people in our life that have passed, or people passing. And how can we bring beauty? So this is more that the depth of Scorpio, with the graceful fluffiness of Venus, there is also a depth. And how can we bring beauty to these processes? Beauty and grace to processes of death. It's not simple, especially if you're somebody who has lost somebody in the recent times, or if you have lost anything. We are constantly losing things as well, in smaller and bigger degrees. And I have something to say about this. Loss, no matter how big or small, loss is always loss. Sometimes it can seem that somebody's losing something trivial, but loss is felt by everybody as something deep and important. So also, please try to be very compassionate with everybody that is losing something, whether it's big or small. If they're going through this deep grief, it's important to acknowledge that any little or big thing is grief. And when it's grieved, have compassion, and have an open heart, and add a container for that grief, even for the small things. And I'm going to tell you, some things that may seem very trivial that get lost cause a lot of suffering, and because of the detachment. So on the first hand, like, grieving is a thing that needs space. Sometimes in our we don't ever take the time to grieve anything, whether it is the grieving of a job that you left, or you moved houses, or you lost somebody you loved, or you broke up with somebody that's meaningful for you. And then, well, next thing, we're on to the next thing, or getting busy with life and stuff, and then pushing it under. Taking these times of like giving your good cries, like, cry over it, let it out, release it, honor it, like, let things go with the emotions that they come, until that emotion or that energetic release is completely completed. And you can do this in rituals, you can do this with some professional help, if that is the route you want to take. You can do this through asking friends to hold some space for you to express your grief. So this is part of the energy of Scorpio. And I think that when we elevate it to this level, it's less about the manipulation than the need to control, which is another part of what will be shown. sometimes with Scorpio is where do we have obsessions and needs to control things? And usually with Scorpio, the reason we want to control something is because we don't want to let it go. So if we can hang on tight to it, we control it, then we don't need to let it go. But when it's dead, it's dead. And the beauty is to the release process. And this is what creates the actual alchemy in Scorpio. And this is high level Scorpios understanding that the shadow themes and the darker themes, and that includes sexuality, taboo things, the occult, all the Scorpio themes. Any of that is part of existence. Like we cannot have, I mean, and I'm going to be a little bit like, biologically gross, but you eat and then you poop. And it's kind of a gross smell and it smells bad. It's like, oh, I'm pretend that it's not smelling bad. It smells bad. That's just what it is. It's nature. But that poop then is the compost for the new plants that will grow and we will eat, right? And that is that cycle of the release of Scorpio and then the Taurus, the growth of Taurus and the release of Scorpio. That is that axis. And when we understand these processes deeply in our lives, and not only as simplistic as I fruit grows, I eat it and I let it go and then the compost throw makes it back, but in general, that everything has this digestion process, this elimination, and then these new things. And if we could integrate this energy of Scorpio into our lives with this amount of consciousness, then letting go of things wouldn't be that hard. The hard part is that they're going to be shown pretty obviously. And this is what the eclipses in this axis do. They will like show the obvious things that need to be let go of. Like they're obvious. So it's a good time to say, okay, this is it. This is the time. Chop, chop. New. Um, and and yes, this is the process. And just going deep. I guess this is all I have to say about this like scorpionic energies coming in, especially because Mercury is also in Scorpio. And when Mercury will conjunct the sun a little bit later this month, next week, well, and coming in this week, thinking about this depth, delving deep, asking those deep, dark questions, getting to the brass taxes is going to be part of that Mercury function. Understanding the deeper meanings and layers behind everything, wanting to know the deeper truths, not the surface realities, but really what is in the depths of the depths of the depths. Asking those questions, being open and honest. And this energy is supportive. This is what's beautiful about the Scorpio energy. It's that there is a massive support for this depth to occur. So yes, we can take things light and fluffy, but no, during this time, there is an opportunity for a final release, especially when the eclipse comes like next week on the November 8th, and I will do a whole video on the eclipse for next week. This is it. This is the time where we already did our rituals for the solar eclipse. The actual flushing of it is with the lunar eclipse. We just flush it. We completely give it up. And this could be very powerful times. Let's see what else is happening in our chart. So yes, we're having also Venus and Venus opposing Uranus is also part of this mix. There is something radically wanting us to change our values, our friendships and relationships. The pull of Uranus towards the new with that North Node is huge. And the resistance to that change is usually the issue. The change is imminent and inevitable. So what are we willing to change? We need to observe in the department of value also how we see our body and how we get our resources, and uh, how we, yeah, what are we willing to do to move into new systems of value. These are a whole new systems of valuing are up for grabs. And if we're still attached to the old systems of value, well, this might not be very easy because Uranus shakes things up like an earthquake. Boom, 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 gone, destroyed, you know, and then and it's gone. And then what do? So prepare, release it, let it go, move with curiosity into the new, into those new ways of getting resources, into those new ways of finding value. What are your new values? The old values are gone, are wanting to go at least. What are those new values? What are you valuing now in your existence? And that is the big question. We have this square to Venus and Saturn, and it's in a T square, obviously, with the Saturn Uranus. So this Saturn is pulling really hard also for us to look at reality and take responsibility, because Saturn always asks responsibility in those areas. And in the areas of life that deal with the Venus, the values, the friendships, everything Venus, relationships, everything we talked about, and the Uranus, everything that's new, novel. So it's this, like, what are the new things or systems we're creating that will be also beneficial for the whole? Remember, this is Aquarius, and in Aquarius, which is a Saturn and Uranus ruled sign, there is that kind of dichotomy where structures or societal structures are needed in order to bring some kind of, like, there's always new things happening, but they're not necessarily erratic and random. The universe, if you look at it, it might look like chaotic, but it's extremely organized. Everything functions in these spirals. Every galaxy, even clusters of galaxies, are in spirals. So the randomness of the universe is not, it's not just random. Everything has structures, and Saturn, that is Saturn's function, to make sure that the structures are solid and stable. And because right now the structures are being shaken, new structures are being built. And so at a societal level, we will see that, but at a personal level, it's important to see where in your chart it's Aquarius, or the around the 18th degree of Aquarius, if you have planets or that house. And that area of life is where you're needing to put more effort, concentration, and discipline in order to make sure that the changes that are being affected and what ultimately will give you more freedom, because this is all about freedom and getting ourselves rid of old patterns or old ways of being or old systems. All of that goes, and all, especially around value and money, and so these are these new things that are being created. And where do you need to take responsibility? It's a very important question. So whatever area of life this Saturn is at is going to be in tension with the areas of life where you have your Taurus house and your Scorpio house. So look at these three houses or areas of life and see where you're wanting to move forward to, where what wants to liberate and create something new, what wants to be completely released and let go of, and what actions are needed to take responsibility and personal responsibility so that we can affect these changes. What happens when we don't do it from the inside is that this is what could happen with a Venus Saturn square, right? And this is a T square. So we see the T square here. With Venus Saturn, this is what the energy could look like, especially in relationships. It could be a relationship with yourself, where you see yourself as like not adequate, probably judging yourself as ugly, as not worthy, as not valuable. So this highlights that, you know, so the feelings or even people that make you feel, you might compare yourself to others, and that's in your own sense of self-worth, or even, yeah, how you look at yourself. So if this is the talk you have to yourself and this is how you're seeing yourself, you might feel also isolated. With Venus, Saturn, there can be a sense of isolation from others and feeling that you're not even good enough to be with others, or that others don't want to be with you. It can show its face in many ways, only to notice like what is valuable in myself if I don't have everything else to show me. In relationships, it could look like this: like there is kind of a distance, that there is some lack of love, lack of pleasure, that pleasures are taken away. Again, yeah, like my money is taken away and I cannot buy that pretty thing that I wanted. It could be as simple as that. Or, well, my lover is really not engaging with me anymore. That's it. It's cold. It's this cold cooling of the love. Now, on the positive side, when we work with this energy, when it's evident, then we can make decisions around it. Like, okay, what is not functioning? Because Saturn will always ask, where are you not being responsible, and how how is my self responsibility towards my own sense of value being brought up to the surface? So if I'm expecting my partner to love me, that means that maybe I have a void inside myself that I could be working with, and that it's not about the other one loving me. It's about me loving me, about me finding what is valuable in me, me finding what gives me pleasure, and what are the things that make me happy and give me joy. So by the absence of it, by contrast, we see what is obviously not not happening. And sometimes, like I always say, it's either you fix things and work them out or step up and see the rewards, or sometimes it's really about having so much self-love for you that you have to end things and move away from certain things. So there is not an exact formula to this, but there is definitely, with these aspects of feeling isolated and cut out from pleasurable things and from love and fluffy feelings. So sit with these images, and if this is you at this time, ask yourself the question, what in me am I not loving? And then you can do a beautiful exercise with the mirror. And the mirror exercise is to see in you not all that is not good with you, is to see in you all that is wonderful in you. Even just the fact that we are alive is a blessing. Like, can you see? Can you touch? Can you smell? Like, everything you do have. I always highlight this in most of my videos. This is a time to see the glass half full and not half empty. Because if you see it half empty, well, we're going to be staying here. And this is all you're going to feel and be in this kind of a little bit of a depressive mode, the lack of love. So this is a time to question if there is lack of love in my life, maybe from the outside, or connection. How can I connect to myself and love myself more? And what do I need to do for that? Because there is action required. With Saturn, there is like, okay, don't stay in like, oh, I'm so miserable. This is so painful. This is, but like, no, there's something to do. There's a responsibility to take towards that. So just do it. Do what you need to do, and then you see the rewards, because that's always what happens with Saturn. When we step up to what's needed, then these changes are extremely liberating, and in particular with this T square, this is what wants to happen, right? This liberation ultimately is to free ourselves up to this new sense of valuing. And well, this is kind of this week's strong points here with the, but it will come, it will go deeper into next week. So next week I will really talk about the eclipse and the implications of this. This is just prep week. So during this week, start prepping. Start getting yeah, getting ready for these questions. Um See what is not functioning, and yeah, let it gracefully go. This is not a one day thing. Yeah. And then of course enjoy also as much as you can enjoy. See the beauty in the process. That's Venus's gift in Scorpio, where Venus is clearly not comfortable in Scorpio, you know, but it's part of a gift. It's seeing the beauty in everything that's leaving, and the beauty in death. All right, so I am going to leave you with this, and may you be well, and I'll see you next week with more of the astrology. Blessings to you all, and feel free to check um, the links in the description below, where there's also, if you like my artwork, you can find a lot of different things that I have to offer. And it's down below as well. And also feel free to check out my offerings in terms of astrology readings. I always forget to say these things, but at some point I need to also say that, right? Because I can help you with questions that you might have, especially in these difficult times. So feel free to reach out. Okay, blessings. See you next week. Bye.